Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of the Before I Go podcast. If you don't mind, I'd like to take the time now to tell you a quick story. Back in 2014, I published a book entitled Push, Pray Until Something Happens, which is currently available on Amazon. Shameless plug. It is nonfiction and is essentially excerpts from my prayer journal, and it documents my journey to entrepreneurship in the field of fitness. You see, after I got in the best physical shape of my life and realized that my true happy place was in the gym, I decided that I needed to work in fitness. My fitness journey was interesting and probably like so many others, in that I did not know what I did not know. And once I found a trainer who taught me how to take care of myself, not just in the gym, but he taught me about nutrition and everything else that's involved with being healthy, I made it my mission to share that information with others. I was so passionate about this goal. I sought God like I had never had before. I wanted to do this. I needed to do this. I wrote out my plans and it all seemed perfectly logical to me. I prayed and I asked God if I could do this. Now, here's where it gets tricky. See, I convinced myself that God told me I could quit my good 6-figure job to pursue entrepreneurship as a personal trainer. Now, in hindsight, I believe I may have mistook him not telling me no as him telling me yes. It's not really the same thing. But my plan, again, seemed so logical and everything seemed to be falling right into place exactly how I wanted it to. And the most important sign to me was that I was at peace with my decision. I was not nervous. I was not scared. I was excited. I was exhilarated. The fact is, I had a ton of enthusiasm and very little experience in the field that I was going into. Sure, I was a certified trainer, but what did I know about building and running a successful business that could turn a profit? Well, 2 short years later, I realized I didn't know anything about building and running a successful business that could turn a profit. In January 2015, I left my good job, and in February 2017, I went back to corporate America. I probably should have gone back sooner, but I was embarrassed, and I felt foolish. In 2015, I was talking real loud about how I was going to do this and how I was going to do that, but in 2017, I was very quiet when I went back. I felt like a complete failure. There is nothing worse than being loud and wrong. Let me say that again. There is nothing worse than being loud and wrong. It is the worst. But I had to swallow my pride and pay my bills, period. Not only did I feel like a failure, but I began to question my relationship with God and my ability to actually hear from Him. I mean, did I just make all that stuff up just so I could do what I wanted to do? When I think about it now, I know that I did not make it up. God may not have told me yes, but He certainly didn't tell me no. I would have heard that. I would have heard a no. I know what no sounds like. You know, I think about my children and how when they were teenagers and young adults, I was more likely to allow them to make certain decisions on their own. I wouldn't tell them no, even though sometimes I thought maybe I should have, because maybe it was a situation that had to be experienced. So I wouldn't say no, but I wouldn't say yes either, if that makes sense. And I believe that is what God was doing with me. I knew that I was passionate about leaving my corporate job and working in fitness. I was burned out by corporate, and fitness energized me. It was because of that passion that I had to do what I did, even if it did not turn out the way I wanted it to. I had to do it, and since I did, I will never have to ask the question, what if? And it's for that reason that I now believe that I did not fail. I learned many valuable lessons, and how can learning be considered a failure? Some of the lessons that I learned were, number one, I'm an excellent trainer, but I'm not a salesperson, and I need to be. I needed to be. Number two, honey, there is no money in fitness, at least not when you're starting out, period. Number three, personal training is a luxury, not a necessity. Not everyone is willing to pay for that luxury, no matter how beneficial it is. The fourth thing I learned was that, and I think I've always known this, but financial security is high on my list of priorities. I was at the point where I was looking at my clients as a paycheck instead of people that I could help, and I hated that feeling. Because training is something, if I'm being honest, is something I would do for free because I love helping people in that way. But if I was doing it full time, free is not an option. And finally, I don't have the temperament for entrepreneurship. Again, we're going back to the financial aspect. I need a steady paycheck, and that's okay. Learning these things about myself never would have happened if I didn't step out on faith and quit my job in 2015. And in my book, that is not a failure. Of course, there may have been an easier way to learn the lesson, but some people, like me, have to take the hard route. For example, I did not seek wise counsel from anyone in my circle. I didn't ask anyone for advice. I just told them, this is what I'm going to do. But no one in my circle said, really? You sure? Maybe you ought to think about this for a while. Everyone was just cheering me on. But the truth is, I know me, and if someone would have tried to discourage me, I probably would have labeled them as a hater and cut them off. I'm smarter now, or at least I'd like to think I am. So the major lesson for me and for you is that you shouldn't be afraid to try something because you don't want to fail. I know that fear of failure is a real thing, but if there is a lesson, there is no failure. You never know unless you try. Don't be afraid to try. Don't you leave here with regrets. Even if it doesn't turn out perfectly, try to find the lesson, and in the lesson, you will see that there is no failure. In the lesson, you will see that there is no failure. Well, that's all I have for today. Thanks so much for listening. But before I go, let me share this with you from Khalil Gibran. Your living is determined not so much by what life brings to you as by the attitude you bring to life. Not so much by what happens to you as by the way your mind looks at what happens. I will see you next time.